Tell me what your conversation with Jonathan and what he wanted you, what he brought you in to do at this small little Johnson Hill Press at the time.
Right. Well, Johnson Hill Press had 4 publications at the time. They had PCA Farming, which was a very successful and very profitable operation that George Pellegrin, Jonathan's dad, had developed and sold and put into place. The other publication they had in custom publishing area was for Purina Mills. And then they owned 2 publications, one called Feed and Grain Times and the other Farm Equipment. And then they published something that was kind of a hobby thing for George Pellegrin called Old Stuff. The total, it didn't add up too big, but a big number. But PCA Farming was a very successful and very profitable enterprise. Jonathan had been with his dad at Johnson Hill for about 3 years, I think, at the time. And when he came, they bought a publication called Feed and Farm Equipment. And his first move when they bought it was to divide it into the 2 publications. He said these are 2 markets, and he was correct in that. There's the feed market, which the feed and grain market, which was the small feed stores and the grain elevators. Feed stores were declining in prominence because a lot of the mixing and feed was going to the farm. And the grain elevator was changing because a lot of large farmers had more capacity than small grain elevators did. And so it was a growth area. Farm Equipment is Farm Equipment dealers. They sell and service farmers for their equipment needs. So that was a good decision on his part. But he was learning the publishing business, and they wanted to develop and expand the custom publishing side of things. And he had conversations going with the James Wade division of Butler, and he needed a writer to put that publication out if he got it sold. And he also knew we hit it off personally, and so he invited me to join Johnson Hill Press. And then at the time, the Crow's account was my account that I brought to Ag Associates, and it came with me to Johnson Hill Press. So we continued with the Crow's advertising program at Johnson Hill. So that was my start.
Yeah. Did you go right into management when you joined him, or did that come later?
I was called a vice president, and but it was not a very significant company at the time. We had 3 vice presidents: Jonathan and Al Paulson in the tabloids, and myself. And but it was a small company. But then that was the beginning, and that's an important number for your benefit, in that the number when I left was quite different.
Yeah. Well, when you left, the total number of publications was.
And when I left, it was almost 20 years later. It was with 22 publications, so and a very profitable business. Jonathan had become stale with what he was doing there and wanted to sell the company, and I was the only other stockholder, so he bought me out because he didn't want a minority stockholder looking over his shoulder when he was negotiating a sale. And so he bought my interest out, and then the best thing was for me to move on, which I was prepared to do. And then subsequently, about a year or two later, he sold the company to Stan Sills in New York.
Some of our older viewers, readers, listeners, that they'll remember the Johnson Hill name, but it sort of became Cygnus in what, 1991 or so, somewhere around there. Or?
Okay, I joined Johnson Hill in 1972, and I left in 1991.
Okay. And that was about the time that Jonathan sold it.
No, he sold it about a year or two later, about 92
okay.
or 3. Okay. But he moved on it pretty quickly after I left.
Yeah. So maybe some of the newcomers who've come in, that are my era or a little bit later might not remember what Johnson Hill Press was. Could you do a kind of a brief encapsulation of at the time that you left, you were in these markets and these total number of publications, and because it was a leading trade publisher in the United States.
We were. Our company sponsored business started with the addition of the James Wade division of Butler Manufacturing. Then we got De La Valle Separator Company, and all the while we still had Crow's hybrid corn. We were the advertising agency for the Crow's hybrid corn, and we got an Ag Chem newsletter out of Madison, and then we got another Ag Chem newsletter out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and so we had 2 Ag Chem newsletters, and the big opportunity arose when we picked up Massey Ferguson account, and that was a substantial sale. And
was that Farm Profit?
Farm Profit,
yep.
Yeah, Massey Ferguson's Farm Profit magazine, and that put us on the map in a big way. And from there, we ended up branching out beyond agriculture and picked up the Piper account. And then I got the Goodyear Farm Tire account. And then we ended up with Goodyear Farm Truck Tire, our truck tire account. And then Peterbilt and Great Dane. And then our newsletters in the Ag Chem industry matured, and we got the Ag Chem division of ConAgra, which was a substantial piece of business. Yeah. And so we had a broad array of many ag, but also some non-ag titles in our company-sponsored group. We had always believed in planning, and we had a planning session, and Jonathan was impatient with the tabloid, we call it the tabloid side of the business. And he had considered selling it off at one point because our company-sponsored business was growing so fast and was producing a good chunk of the profits. So when he looked around and decided how he could do this, he needed to take a break, and he left the company for and took a sabbatical. And at that time he put me in charge of the company-owned publications, which included Feed and Grain Times, Farm Equipment, Rental, Yard and Garden, and Furniture Wood. The 5 publications didn't bill $2 million. Feed and Farm were the largest. Feed was the most profitable. And Feed and our Furniture, for example, billed $176,000 the year I took it over. Yard and Garden about $135,000. Rental was, and both losing money. Rental was billing $230,000 and was marginally profitable. And Feed and Grain were carrying the load. And so during the planning session, the first planning session that I was involved with the tabloid division, we had to make some decisions. And I decided that my role would be to help consolidate all the markets we were in. because there were too many publications in each of these markets, and too many were not making any money. And when you in that situation, if you can be the consolidator, you should be able to get a good position in that market. So we had a publisher in charge of each title, and we had one editor for all 5 publications. His name was Butch Horn. And we had a circulation problem in that our circulation philosophy was to buy a mailing list, age it for 3 years, and then buy it again, and age it for 3 years. And I think 4 of the 5 publications were being mailed 3rd class, which was too expensive. And so we had a lot of things to address. And with the individual publishers each having their own title, I pursued the idea of consolidating the marketplace. I started with rental. I went to Harcourt Brace Jovanovich in New York, and my pitch was, you have a magazine that's marginally profitable or losing money. I have a magazine that is marginally profitable or losing money. We need to talk. And I think one of us should buy the other. Today, you should decide that if you want to be in this market, or I should decide if I'm more interested in this market, and one of us should end up with both properties at the end of the day. He didn't buy that pitch on the urgency of it, but he said, I did check with him 6 months later, and he said, yeah, I would sell our position. So we consolidated the rental market. We did the same on Yard and Garden, and didn't get any takers. And then we did the same in the furniture wood market. And the number 3 book, at the time we were the number 7 book in a 7-book market. The number 3 book decided they did not want to be in business any longer. We got their mailing list, and as a result, we had the best circulation in the marketplace. And we had an editorial format to pursue, and we became the number 3 book in the market overnight.
That's a great story, and one that I can personally say that you, as our strategic planning facilitator for 10 years, on 2 occasions, you advised me how to do the same thing, and we did it. We did one in the ag space, and we did one in another division, which was. I would say you taught me how to do that. And so we got it done again through your guidance as our facilitator.
Well, the philosophy was in farm equipment, for example, that Farm and Power and Implement and Tractor were the enemy. We had to beat them. And we didn't have a strong circulation story to tell. We didn't have a strong editorial position to tell. So we competed very aggressively for ad dollars. And I think we were probably the best of the best in selling. And we sold ad space, and we did it very, very well. And Jim Rank would be an example of how to go to market and be an aggressive salesman in a marketplace. And he led the charge on farm equipment. But all the time, we viewed Farm and Power and Implement and Tractor as the enemy. Well, I saw Farm and Power as a potential friend, because that's the association for farm equipment dealers. And so established a friendly relationship with them, and some good things came from that. But the consolidation actually took place after you took the ownership of farm equipment. But I think that was the right approach, to be friendly with the association, and you could do a better job in the industry as well as by partnering than by competing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we have a very good relationship with the association today. In fact, they're going to do a foundation donation as part of the 55th year of farm equipment. They're celebrating what we're doing, which is cool. I'm going to get a phone call tomorrow. after their board meeting on that. So yeah, I think what you started and we've continued, we have a much better relationship today than we did 10, 15 years ago with the association.
Well, in the furniture market, now the owner of the furniture industry, we went from the 7th book to the number 3 book, and now the publisher that I worked with owns the furniture market. It is consolidated, and he has all of the titles are now under his responsibility. I mean,
This is our friend Tim.
Our friend Tim.
Yeah.
He owns the furniture market, and I'm very pleased because that was the philosophy we developed, and it's worked.